Welcome, welcome everybody. Hello, hello everybody. Hello, hello. Hi, lovelies. Welcome, welcome. What I'll do is I'll just pop everybody on mute as we come in, just to avoid a kind of melee of sounds. Let me just pop everybody on mute. But the chat box will be there, so if you have any questions, if we have any technical issues, if you can't hear me or anything, please do let me know. Usually your first few minutes are needed just to let everybody in, let everybody get settled. A little chance to make your little safe space, your little nest. If you want to get yourself a cup of tea, if you want to get yourself a drink, feel free to do so. My name is Sarah, and those of you who have joined me for other such Zoom events as yoga and meditation know that sometimes I like to use a little bit of kind of story as a form of meditation. So reading story to you is a little bit new, I guess, but the idea that we could just take a little pause from our day, whether that be with meditation, with story, with a little folklore, is it's all ways to find just a little pause in the day, maybe. I had this wonderful idea that it would be September and it would be very autumnal and we'd have the candles going, but anyone in the UK right now knows that we're having something of a heat wave. So there's blazing sunshine outside that window, so you cannot see my candles at all. But still, we're all warm and comfy, so that's good, I suppose. At least we're not cold. I'm just going to take a minute or so just to let everyone kind of arrive in. I'm just letting a few people in from the waiting room. So we have enough time just to get ourselves settled and comfortable. And I'll just explain a little about what the half hour will entail. This is a kind of a new project for me, so we'll see how we go. Inspired by my new book, Kitchen Witch, Food, Folklore and Fairy Tale, which is coming out in March next year, I thought it would be fun just to read you a few of the stories and little folk tales that I've gathered. So today's theme is all things green. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about the background of some herbal remedies and folk magic. I'll talk about a little bit of the folklore of a few common plants and herbs. And then we'll finish with 2 fairy tales that feature plants in some way. Now, this is the first of 3, so feel free at the end of the session if you want to drop me a message and just let me know how you found it. If you felt that you wanted more fairy tales or more folklore, feel free to give me feedback as we figure this all out together. Welcome, welcome, lovelies. I see you. I just popped the gallery view on for a moment. I can see some familiar faces, some new faces, and I'm just very grateful for everyone who wanted to just come along and join me today. Welcome, welcome, my lovelies. So we've ticked over past the top of the hour. I put everybody on mute. Oh, hello from Ontario, Canada. Is that right? Is that ON? I think so. So hello from Canada. Somebody said hello from Canada. Beautiful. Fantastic. I got that bit right. Thank you so much for joining me from all manner of places. I hope that it is nice and warm in Canada. It is absolutely gloriously hot here in England today. We've got a very warm and sunny evening ahead of us. Southern California. Oh, gorgeous, gorgeous. Lovely sunny. How perfect. Sunny in sunny California. Wonderful. So my darlings, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna pin my videos. That'll mean, or have I already done that? Let me see, speaker. I think that's right. Wonderful. Oh, Caitlin in Barcelona, gorgeous. You lucky souls. All right, my darling ones. So feel free to get yourself settled. You can relax, you can close your eyes if you want to. You can just get yourself a cup of tea and listen as I chat away. I'll leave a few minutes at the end if I can, just for any pressing questions, but you can always email me after the fact as well. And I'll post the video up on YouTube. So if you miss anything, you can always come back to the story. So some of what I'll speak to today are tales of superstitions that feature the character of the witch, as we know her as the kitchen witch. Or it might be that some of these stories, some of these little folklores and superstitions are stories perhaps told by the witch or by the wise woman or the healer or the cunning man around hearth fires to pass on information about healing herbs or folk magic. I'm just letting someone in from the waiting room there. So different kinds of stories, but all that I hope feature a little bit of interest and a little bit of enchantment. Our theme today is green, and that's the magic of plants. And through the development of civilizations, we've relied on plants and herbs and flowers for food and medicine, as well as part of spiritual beliefs and magical practices. Every plant, every flower, every herb has a distinctive energy of some kind, and we might identify that simply as scent or color or flavor or the properties that it holds. And they may also have an energy that might be considered magical, as well as healing and culinary qualities. And in the kitchen and garden, we can journey into the magical world of herbs and plants, filled as they are with magical uses, folklore, history, and a little practical magic. I'm letting somebody else in the waiting room there. Some herbs were thought to be magical because they were known to be used in spells and potions, and that's either through actual observation or via more perhaps superstition rather than actual fact. Others held magic because they were known to be healing. And an excellent example of a herb or plant used for both magic and medicine is St. John's wort. So from ancient Greece and through the Middle Ages, superstitions held that St. John's wort was imbued with magical powers, and it was able to drive away storms and tempests and ward off demons. And as a practical folk remedy, it has been used to heal wounds and soothe nervous conditions. Now, present-day clinical research has supported these ancient uses of St. John's wort. In the present day, it's found to be known as a protector or a suitable treatment for low mood, depression, and also viral infections. So those are modern-day demons that St. John's wort can help us ward with, perhaps. Many herbs were connected with magic and folklore because they were thought to be favoured by the witches, who might use them in herb or spell work. So you might recognise names such as pennyroyal or henbane, and herbs of chervil, sage, and mint. And then the witches' interesting plants like hemlock and belladonna that we know to have both healing and harming properties. But just as likely in books of herb lore would you mentioned herbs that might repel the witches. And these, again, were for many different reasons, including superstitions. So there was a superstition that any plants connected with the sun could repel a witch because witches favour the night. So any plants that had yellow flowers and resembled the sun, so dandelions and daisies, were considered to be not favoured by the witch. To use herbs and spices is both an ancient and modern art, and throughout the world, spices and herbs are frequently used in cooking for flavour and preservation, but also for nourishment and healing. Food was medicine, and medicine was food. And herbal medicines and the use of herbs in cooking have been practiced since the first ancient civilizations of Egypt and Mesopotamia. Many of the herbs we use today have been known of for thousands of years and are just as effective now as they were then. And I always think of turmeric here because it is incredibly trendy right now to have a turmeric latte at Starbucks, but its anti-inflammatory properties have been known since our earliest civilizations and in Ayurvedic medicine as well. Similarly, fennel was used for relieving digestive problems in the Middle Ages, and we still use it today to soothe and calm, especially in tea blends. So you'll often find fennel teas with companies such as Pucker and Twinings, so the big tea brands. Herbs may well be able to help in reconnecting our modern minds to magic on different levels. They exist perhaps in that kind of space between science and wonder, magic and medicine, and spellcraft and holistic healing. So let's meet a few of these herbs. So we'll start with parsley. Parsley is a mild flavored herb, but it's nevertheless very high in nutrients and can be used in both culinary and medicinal ways. Now, some say that only a witch can grow parsley, and certainly malevolent beings seem to have an effect on this herb. Its seeds are one of the slowest to germinate. So this folklore story arose that the seeds go to the devil back again 9 times before the plant could grow. But if you wanted the plant to grow fast, it should be planted on a Good Friday, because supposedly on Good Friday, the devil has no power. Though parsley was connected to death with the ancient Romans, the ancient Greeks actually held completely the opposite idea. They wore crowns of parsley around their heads at banquets as a symbol of joy and gaiety. And it's also useful for them to eat afterwards for digestion and fresher breath. So maybe they took a few leaves after the banquet as well. We'll move on to Angelica. I can see someone else in the waiting room, so I'll just let them in. Sorry, I tried to notify you every time I let somebody in. So Angelica, the beautifully named Angelica, its Latin name, Angelica archangelica. So the angel and the archangel. It's a perennial herb commonly known as wild celery. A traditional medicine in Europe and Russia where it grows wild, the roots of Angelica are used to make herbal medicines, and they are useful for a wide range of treatments, including anxiety and digestive problems and insomnia. Today, we still use it as a medicine. And we also use it in cooking. So the stems can be used in salads, and they're also candied to make little sweets. You can find them sometimes in health food stores. And it's also used for flavoring alcoholic beverages, including gin and Benedictine, which are 2 of my personal favorites. As you might expect from such an angelic named plant, it was also used to ward and charm a household, to protect it from witches, elves, evil energies. And according to middle-aged folklore from England, Angelica was named after an angel who came down, and England was strewn with plague victims, and the angel came down and let the monks know, because they were the ones with the connection to the angels, they let them know that this plant could be used to help soothe the sick and the weary. So one more herb. We'll look at rosemary. So rosemary, from the Latin ros marinus, meaning the dew of the sea. It's a waxy needle-leafed aromatic herb that has been used in Europe, Asia, and the Americas as a herbal medicine for centuries. And dating back to the ancient Egyptians, they valued it as both a herbal remedy and a perfume. And it's still used as incense today. And it's possible that the Anglo-Saxons, when they came to England, found rosemary growing all over the country because it was introduced by the Romans here. Now, the ancient Romans used and valued rosemary, but as did the ancient Greeks. And they believed that rosemary was connected to memory and thoughts. So they might wear a charm or a headdress of rosemary when they were taking exams or doing something important with one's mind. It was also connected to Mnemosyne, the goddess of memory, and she gifted humans their ability to remember. But there was a story that when we die and pass into the afterlife, Mnemosyne would allow the souls of humans to drink from the river Leith, the underworld river of forgetfulness, so that we may forget why we are so in love with the people upon earth, or those happy memories, to just soften the memories to allow us to drift into the afterlife a little more easily. And this folklore around memory and death with rosemary is also very prevalent in England and Europe, and is mentioned in many of Shakespeare's plays. says in Hamlet, it's Ophelia that says rosemary, that's for remembrance. So magic is held within plants and herbs, but not always in the ways we expect. And that's especially true when it comes to fairy tales. The magic or the power of the plant is not always in the most straightforward manner or a way that we might expect. So although these wild and wonderful tales are obviously fiction, there are certain truths that can be found within them. Which brings us to a tale that you may well know, and that is the tale of Rapunzel. What you might not know is Rapunzel, first and foremost, is a plant. It is a kind of radish. So I named this shorter version of the Rapunzel tale, Rapunzel the radish. So I'm just going to let somebody in that's in the waiting room. So we'll just take a pause and take a sip of water. So in the earliest versions of the fairy tale Rapunzel, as told by the brothers Grimm, there is a couple who are longing for a child, but that longing for a child is mirrored within the wife's longing for Rapunzel, which at the beginning of the story is not the daughter, but another name for the plant rampion, Campanula ranunculus. It's an edible salad green with these roots that are like radishes, and it was once really widely grown in Europe, and particularly in Germany, rampion's old German name was Rapunzel, which becomes the title for this strange and fascinating fairy tale about radishes and desire and a little bit about love as well. Once upon a time, there lived a man and his wife who wished dearly for a child. And finally, the woman becomes pregnant, and how happy they are. But now, at the back of their little house, they overlook a garden, and this garden is owned by a sorceress, a great sorceress, skilled in growing all kinds of beautiful flowers, herbs, and vegetables. Nobody ever dared enter the garden or disturb it. But one day, when the wife was standing at the window looking over the garden, she noticed a beautiful bed of Rapunzel. And she had a great craving to eat some, but she knew she couldn't get any. But wanting only to eat this Rapunzel, she began to waste away, becoming weak and pale. Now, her husband loved her so very much, he decided no matter what the cost, he was going to retrieve some of this Rapunzel for his wife. So he climbed the wall into the garden, grabbed a great handful of the Rapunzel plant, and brought it back to his wife, who ate it with great zest. However, the Rapunzel tasted so very good that her craving for it became 3 times greater. So back into the garden he goes. But this time he is terrified to come face to face with the great sorceress, who scolded him for daring to come into the garden and steal her Rapunzel. He explained, "This is for my wife and she's pregnant, and it became too dangerous to deny her this food that she wanted so much." "All right," the sorceress says, "I shall permit you to take as much Rapunzel as you like, but only if you give me the child that your wife is carrying once born." In his fear, the man agreed to everything. Now, when his wife gave birth, the sorceress appeared at once. She took the baby away and she locked her in a high tower, and she named the baby Rapunzel. Now, as the baby girl grew, so did her locks of fine, strong, golden hair. And soon enough, whenever the sorceress wanted to enter the tower, she would stand below and call out, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." And Rapunzel let down her golden braids so the sorceress could climb up. Now, one day, a young prince was riding through the forest and came upon this tower. He looked up and saw beautiful Rapunzel at the window. And he went into the forest every day until one day he saw the sorceress calling out. So he took careful note of these words. And the next day he went to the tower and called out himself, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." And Rapunzel let her hair drop, and up he climbed. Now, at first Rapunzel was wary, but soon the young prince pleased her so much that she agreed to see him every day. And they had a merry time and enjoyed each other's company. And the sorceress didn't become aware of this until one day Rapunzel said to her, "Why are my clothes becoming so tight? They don't fit around my belly anymore." And the sorceress knew exactly what that meant. She became furious and she grabbed Rapunzel's beautiful hair and snip, snap, she cut it all off. She banished Rapunzel to a desolate land where she gave birth to twins. Now, on that same day that the sorceress had banished Rapunzel, the prince came by and called out, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." But this time it was the sorceress who let the cut braids down. And when the prince climbed up into the tower, there was no Rapunzel, only an angry sorceress who cried, "You villain, Rapunzel is lost to you forever." In his despair, the prince threw himself from the tower. Now he escaped with his life, but he lost sight in his eyes. So lost and blind, he wandered the forest, eating nothing but grass and roots and weeping. Now, sometime later, he managed to find his way by chance to the desolate land where Rapunzel was leading a wretched existence with her two children. But he recognized her voice instantly, and they embraced each other. And two of her tears fell upon his eyes, and he could see once more. In later versions of the tale, it was confirmed that they did live happily ever after, which is comforting after this pretty traumatic series of events. So that is the story of Rapunzel, a story of a woman in a tower. And I have a second story about a woman in a tower. This is a very short version of the fairy tale called Princess Mayblossom, from the French Princesse Printanier. Now, this is from a book called Les Contes de Fées, which means fairy tales. And in fact, it was the first ever book to use the name fairy tales. And it was by a woman named Mary Catherine d'Aulnoy. She published this in 1697. So she is responsible for the term fairy tale, which I think she deserves to be maybe a little better known for. So I bring it into the book a few times. I was delighted to find this story as it has some gorgeous food imagery, but also features a princess who is cursed by some circumstances beyond her control. She makes a few unwise choices, but ultimately seizes her skills and power to find her own happy ever after. It's also interesting to see that hunger and thirst act as a sort of catalyst in this story to reveal certain truths. I'm just going to let someone in the waiting room in. Sorry, I said I wasn't going to narrate every time I let somebody in. So this is the story of Princess Mayblossom. A king and queen named their newly born daughter Mayblossom, for she was as bright as the spring and as beautiful as lilies and roses. But they despaired when the newborn princess was cursed by a malevolent fairy to be miserable for her first 20 years of life. They brought a fairy godmother in to help, and she did what she could to remedy the curse by assuring that Princess Mayblossom's life would be long and happy after those first 20 years, and advised that the princess be kept in a tower to minimize the harm of her first 2 decades, which is what happened. So we fast forward past those 2 decades, and now it is just a few months leading up to the 20th birthday of Princess Mayblossom. Now, with just a few months to go before she is released from this tower, many ambassadors to kings came to visit the tower to propose matches for this princess who was soon to be free to wed and remained as beautiful as spring flowers, so she had many a suitor despite her captivity. But one fateful day, Princess Mayblossom, peeking through a hole in the tower wall, beheld one of these ambassadors, and she instantly fell in love with him. And she called out, and with his help, she escaped the tower, and they ran away, not before taking with them her father, the king's dagger for protection, and the queen's headdress. With these small treasures, they fled in a small boat to a nearby desert island. But once upon this island, the ambassador began to complain of hunger and thirst. And when the princess could find nothing for him, he suddenly found himself falling very quickly out of love. But she kept looking through the island for food, and eventually she came across a beautiful red rose. And the flower offered her some sparkling sweet honeycomb, but warned her not to show the ambassador. But still seeking to please him, she did, and he snatched up the golden honeycomb and he ate it all for himself, leaving nothing left for her. The next day, the princess found an old oak tree that offered her a pitcher of creamy milk, but warned her again not to show the ambassador. But once again she did, and once again he snatched it up and he drank it all. By now the princess is beginning to despair at her rash choice to elope. But the next day, on gentle wings, a nightingale arrives to her and offers her sugar plums and delicious little fruit tarts. And this time she was quiet and ate them with great joy all to herself. However, when the ambassador discovered that she had eaten these treats without him, he threatened her. But being wise to magic, she took up her queen's headdress, the one they had brought with them, and placed it on her head. Within this headdress was an enchanted stone which made her invisible, which is lucky because that hungry and furious ambassador tried to kill her and eat her, but she killed him first with the help of her father, the king's dagger. And by now, men had been sent to seek out the eloping princess, and she alone was brought back to the kingdom to much celebration. And then, upon her 20th birthday, she sought and found herself a fine prince, and she lived with him happily ever after. And that is the story of Princess Mayblossom, and how hunger can sometimes bring out a fiery nature in us all. So that is the end of our little stories and folklore of herbs and plants today. The next session will be in October, and you can join just the same way that you joined this one. Someone said that is a very great example of being hangry. Exactly, you can kind of sympathize with the ambassador a little bit, because I know when I'm hungry and thirsty, I'm a bit of a grouch too. I've not yet tried to kill and eat anyone, but there we go. Sometimes being super hungry can bring out the fierce in us. So we just have about 2 or 3 minutes to go. If anyone does have any pressing questions, I will do my best to answer them. But of course, you're always welcome just to drop me an email anytime. Oh, thank you so much. Candice says, my storytelling is superb. That is a fine compliment. Thank you so much. I was quite nervous today. It's the first time I've done a kind of a storytelling venture. So it was a bit of a new one for me. But you're always welcome to drop me a message anytime on social media or email if you want more fairy tales or more folklore or a bit of a mix of things. Then I'm always welcome. I always welcome suggestions. So that theme was kind of green and plants and herbs today. Our next theme is called Brewing Up a Storm, I think. There is a lot of folklore. When it comes to superstitions of witches, there's a lot of folklore relevant to the kind of the issues of the day. So storms at sea were something that scared people. They're something that really affected people. And so there's a lot of kind of superstition and folklore around storms and how witches might either brew up a storm, They also might sell storms to people in charm form. And they also might set sail in a variety of delightful food-based boats as well, which make for some really fun stories. So I'm really looking forward to that one as well. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a real pleasure. I hope to see you all again soon. We're just about to tick over to past. So I will bid you farewell. Drop me a message anytime. I will send you my love. Mwah. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you soon. Goodbye for now, everybody.